ESPN's Dan Orlovsky, thanks for joining us. Wondering what you make of that, the way that Belichick decided to end that press conference with that little question from a reporter and the answer he gave of the focus on beating Cincinnati.
Yeah. I've tried to make a very firm stance of never taking anything that Coach Belichick says and trying to decipher it, just because, I mean, he's the greatest person in a press conference ever when it comes to saying absolutely everything with saying nothing. So I don't make much of it, candidly, and I'm not surprised. That's probably the answer that is relatively expected, knowing how Coach Belichick for a very long time that has handled any question that feels like has come to that or in that world. So I'm not surprised by his answer that it was very much team-centric rather than individual.
So we've been talking to you all year, and every day, I feel like Wednesday, we feel like, okay, is it going to get better? Is it going to get better? But I feel like it's gotten worse with us, Dan, with this team. So I guess the question is this the bottom for this offense? Is this rock bottom of what you saw last week?
It has to be. For obviously the way the game ends, how poor your offense played. One of the scores is the Duggar interception, which was a great play. Yeah, and I'm about to do this on NFL Live a little bit more in detail, but I've talked ad nauseum this year when it comes to the Patriots offense of, the lack of creativity and calling the same plays over and over again, and then obviously the shotgun and the underneath stuff, and kind of all those aspects. And watching the game last week over, I think on Monday or Tuesday this week, I just kept writing the same note down, and it was under center, run, under center, run, under center, run. They were under center. And again, this is a microcosm last week of something that has shown very much so this season, but last week it was exacerbated. They were under center 23 snaps last week. They ran the ball 22 out of 23 of those snaps. Wow. Now, there is a group of people that don't believe in predictability. They don't think it's a big deal. They'll sit there and tell you, well, I don't know the type of run. And while I can, somewhat understand where they're coming from, but the reality of what that does to other parts of our offense is it makes our job so much harder. How about when they were in the gun last week? They threw it all snaps but 4, and I'm pretty confident that 2 of those throws were pulls on an RPO by Mac Jones. So there is just this overwhelming evidence last week, and then you dive into it over maybe the course of the last 4 or 5 weeks and then throughout the season, that when that football team is under center, and they did it a little bit more last week than they have, but under center to run the ball basically every single snap is ridiculous. And then when you're in the gun to throw it 85%, 90% of the time, I mean, of course it's going to be hard to play. And Marcus is going to be honest with me, I was just with a couple other guys that played D-line, and I'm not going to share their names because I didn't tell them that I was going to share our conversation. But I asked them, I said, did y'all really pay attention to that stuff? And they laughed at me, and they were like, of course we did. If we know what you're doing, my job is so much easier.
So real quickly, just to follow up on that, with that being said, Dan, I most definitely feel like it's going to get worse because the teams are better. The last 3 games, the last 2 teams are all better. They're all playing for something. And yet here they go. Yeah. Here we go again. So I mean, maybe it doesn't look like it did, the last play of the game, right, where they lateral it 2 times and
sure.
Chandler Jones just completely, just pushes Mac through the earth. But I mean, they could get walloped 40-0.
Yeah, and I said this when I did something like this with Carolina before in the start of the season when their back's alignment was very indicative of run or pass. If I see it, the team you're about to play sees it because they're a lot smarter than me, and they're just watching your tape. I got to watch everybody's. So, yeah, I mean, with information and talent, those 2 things are powerful in any sport, in any level. So it's not going to be very good unless things, change, get altered, get tweaked.
Dan, could one of those changes be at quarterback? Should Bill stick with Mac?
Of course.
Of course.
Of course. Yeah.
We watched that same game against the Raiders, right? I mean, that's a last place pass defense. And Mac had his worst game maybe as a Patriot.
How many drops?
There's a few. How many missed throws?
I don't think that I charted that many missed throws. I think there were 2 or 3 to start the game. One's a flat, one's an out route. Those are bona fide misses by Mac Jones. But do we really think that this offense is going to be, elevated or injected by the addition of Bailey Zappi? I'm going to look at my notes right now for this.
Well, I can tell you that you're right about the first pass that he threw was the Jonnu Smith. It was almost intercepted, and the next 2 were terrible. But then he had the red zone throw to Jonnu Smith that was bad. He had the Jacoby Myers throw
that was bounds.
Terrible.
The red zone throw to Jonnu Smith is on Jonnu Smith. I think
How
he
so?
slowed down.
That was 5 yards out of bounds, Dan.
That ball
one in the end
that
zone?
ball's a touchdown. That ball's a touchdown if Jonnu Smith doesn't slow down.
Well, I don't
The
know.
one in that corner?
I would say I usually agree
He
with
was
you on
8
this
feet
one.
tall,
I would
maybe.
say equal blame for both sides, to be honest with you.
I mean,
He's looking at
as
his
a
notes.
quarterback,
We hear you.
We
you
heard
hear
those
you turn the
papers
papers.
rustling.
as a quarterback, when I'm throwing that ball, when I'm cutting that ball loose, I'm throwing it to land, hopefully 3 or 4 yards out of bounds. So the 6'4" guy is fully extended versus man coverage. I mean, we might say that misses by a foot or something like that, but that's not an egregious miss. John, go watch the tape. When he peeks back, he slows down. And that's why there's that great, oh my goodness, miss. I have Mac Jones missing 3 throws. First quarter, 7:19. First quarter, 7:15. Second quarter, 12:02. And then I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 drops.
So what did you think about the second play that they ran where that same sequence, that red zone sequence, right, where they're on the 2? The next play was like they were trying to run a slant route, but it was Nelson Aguilar, and Mac had a fit because he felt like either he didn't, bench it off quicker, or he didn't work separation. Do you know what the play I'm talking about?
No, it's not ringing a bell. What quarter is it in?
Same sequence. It was the next play after the Jonnu Smith.
In the red zone disaster sequence.
Yeah. Don't worry about it. It
after
doesn't matter. The fact is that he was not happy with the route, and it's hard to tell who's right and who's wrong now. I think it's the other aspect
you know
of it.
this, though. When it comes to any aspect of offense, but certainly a pass game, and that's one of the things that I've gotten into when I got into this business was trying to get people to understand there's so many different tiers and/or levels to talent and performance. So it's not just, Mac played really good and the receivers sucked. If the quarterback's numbers are good, it's because of everyone else around him played relatively complimentary as well. When the quarterback's numbers are bad, there's probably going to be multiple examples of everybody else around him struggling as well. So I don't again. Mac did not play a great game. I thought Mac was fine. I've said this before. It's really hard to gauge and judge his performance when everything around him is so dire.
So as you said there, Mac, okay, maybe a fine game. His numbers look awful just in the box score. Did you see anything in terms of his mechanics or anything that looked a couple of those passes did look really off where he was sailing over the sideline and inaccurate?
Yeah, I didn't see anything mechanically, no. I mean, I think those first 2 misses, 7:19 in the first quarter and 7:15 when he's throwing those outs or flats or quick outs to the field, I think those are the 2 misses when I sit there. I remember the second one I rewound 5 or 6 or 7 times from the sideline and the end zone to be because the ball looks like it's just odd coming out of his hand. My goodness, that one looked weird. But I didn't see anything mechanically with those that were. I think those 2 were just very odd misses. But those were the only 2 misses that I saw. I've got 5 drops. I've got great throws on in routes on third down. I got a great throw that's a drop. I got a great throw that gets your feet in, and it's a big time completion. So I did not see any flaws mechanically. No.
And I just had to ask you because we asked Mac on Monday when we were in person with him about not having the Hail Mary call at the end of the game, and they went with the draw play.
Yeah.
As a quarterback, I mean, are you chomping at the bit? Are you voicing that you want it in your hands in that situation? How would
if
you?
You feel like you can get it there, I think so. I feel like if you feel like you can block it up and get it there, I think you want a shot at it. Absolutely. I don't know well, if Mac feels like he can get the ball there, 55 plus yards, I think it would be. So, by the time you get back and get into a drop, you're looking at probably close to a 60-yard throw, and can we protect it and all that stuff? I think you do want the shot at it, but, I think if the coach is adamant, no, we're just going to hand it off and go to overtime, I could also understand where he sits there and goes, okay, maybe this is the moment where, I kind of bite my tongue and we do what the coach asks or says.
Dan, just to follow up on that a little bit, I saw on TV you saying that last play was a real big example of the Patriots being a poorly coached team, and I do agree. I mean, I think they've been very poorly coached this year. I agree with you there. But at some point, don't the players have to know the situation on the field and the time and the score and all that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was one of those things where, like, that last play, I do believe is 99.9% player, and I think Jacoby handled himself totally professionally and was big time, like a pro and a man in that moment after the game. But my brain naturally does go to, like, if there was an offensive coach there running the show, would that have been happened? Would there have been some form of communication before? I don't know. Like, but that's I don't. While it might be outrageous or Dan's trying to make it, my brain naturally goes there because I've never seen anything like that. So, and maybe that's unfair to the coaches. I'm not blaming the coaches at all for that happening. It's just where my mind goes to with everything that has transpired this year for the Patriots offense.
Okay, so with the Cincinnati Bengals coming in and Joe Burrow coming in and that just high-powered offense, I mean, do the Patriots need to score like 35 points to win this game? Or what would be the game plan? Like, you tell me, based on everything you know, what would be the game plan you would throw out there to beat the Cincinnati Bengals?
Yeah, keep the offense as far off the field or as much off the field. So that offense is high-powered, yes, but a little bit more so last year than this year. That offense is more efficient this year. It's the best short passing game in the NFL because teams are playing them in so much too high safety shell. I would imagine New England will do that a ton. Their ability to run the football out of the shotgun, they're a predominantly shotgun team that does it well because of their talent on the perimeter. The area that Patriot fans will see that receiver talent show up the most is in the red zone. They've become one of the best red zone offenses in the league because they have to be so efficient and methodical. And it's really hard to match up against those three guys down there because Joe's always able to find where's the one you're not doubling, or if you're doubling him, where's the next option, or where's your fourth corner type of thing. So that's, they're going now the Patriots play pretty good red zone defense. That's where they're going to have to be at their best. That's the matchup there.
All right, Dan Orlovsky from ESPN.
Thanks, Dan.
Dan, thank you so much and have a very happy holiday.
And a Merry Christmas.
Thanks, guys. You too. Merry Christmas, guys.
Merry Christmas.